We move on to Mr. Richard Gordon. He's the director of Bournemouth University International Disaster Management Center in the UK. He's also flown in to be with us today. He's keynote speaker at the UN World Second International Forum on the Integration of Emergency Management in 2012. He has trained many country members of the armed forces, civil defense, and government and development partners on disaster management throughout his years. Armed Forces Division, Ministry of Disaster Management, Department of Disaster Management, Police, Fire Services, and Civil Defense, International Committee of the Red Cross, and many other international NGOs. Without any further ado, let us please welcome our second speaker, Mr. Richard Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. General, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your warm invitation here to Abu Dhabi. I did phone home last night to find out what the weather was, and I'm glad I'm here. That's all I can say in England. If we could have the first slide up. Whilst they're doing that, I'll explain to you what I really want to try and put across to you this morning. This is the one little chance during a day which focuses on a particular area, which of course is firefighting and dealing with fires. I want to try and broaden the perspective to interagency cooperation. And I'm using the expression major incident management. I run a centre in a university in the United Kingdom. We work and train with police, civil defence, civil protection, the military and government agencies, assisting them and big businesses in the countries to develop resilience, to develop disaster management plans. It is interesting reading the vision of the Emirates Civil Defence, that the vision is to protect people, property, and the environment. And those are the three elements in the international definition of disaster management. It's about reducing the risk, protecting, and responding to incidents to help protect people, property, and the environment. So disaster management is very much at the heart of what we are here talking about today. Major incident management really is something which feeds into disaster management. If we can get major incident management right, we're more likely to be able to deal with a disaster. And what I want to do just for a few minutes this morning is touch on what I think are a number of missing elements in major incident management as we go around the world. And it's really a kind of a challenge for each of us in any country to see how well we can do these things. I've chosen this particular missing element because it requires coordination across not just one agency, but across many agencies. And the issue I'm going to be looking at is how we track and identify those who are affected by disasters. Because as I will try to demonstrate to you, the lives of your people will be rescued by members of civil protection and civil defence. They'll be rescued by members of the police. They'll be rescued by members of the fire service. They'll be rescued by members of the medical services. They'll be rescued by members of the public. And what we need to do is to find a way that we can correctly track where those people have gone and also who they are. So, let me start by looking at a particular thought. Internationally, governments are working all the time to develop their national disaster management plans. And when it comes to preparedness for response, there are these key areas that they are looking at. I want to highlight three of them. Although, as Peter found, highlighting things is not as easy as it might first appear. It might be helpful if somebody could press the button because nothing's happening there. Thank you. I want to look at these three areas: lead coordination, casualty tracking, and disaster victim identification. Those are the three things I want to look at. As you can see, there are many more that we could look at during a day. I think probably in an audience like this, you would understand that there are three levels of response management during a major incident or during a disaster. We call them operational, tactical, and strategic, and they build from the bottom up. Now, those of you with any military background always have a problem with the bottom two because they feel that tactical and operational should be the other way around. But in the world of international disaster management, it is commonly understood that operational is where you get your hands dirty. That is where you are rescuing people. So those of you who are commanding teams of firemen or civil defense, civil protection, rescuing people from the rubble, rescuing people from the fire. If you're medically trained and you're rescuing people and giving them essential medical assistance, you are operating at the operational level. But because you need coordinating, there is a tactical level. And it's at the tactical level that there is coordination. Again, I think it's going to be helpful. Could I ask, please, somebody just press the button when I say now, and then we'll get the next slide up. Thank you. And you can see at the tactical level, what we're trying to do is to implement priorities. Tactical has a very difficult job. It has got to put out the fire. It has got to rescue people. It's got to deal with the incident. And one of the things which any study of disaster management makes very clear is that the objectives of all the different agencies that are involved can sometimes differ. Yes, we're all there to save lives, we're all there to rescue people, but there are other things going on. The police, for example, want to conduct an investigation because every man-made disaster is a potential scene of crime. And yet there are government agencies who are wanting you to clear up the mess and get back to normality so we can carry on as we should. If you're here representing a business, you have exactly the same conflict of interest. Part of you is wanting to respond to the disaster and protect lives, protect property, and protect the environment. Others of you are saying, yes, but we want to get back to business as quickly as possible. So there is a conflict. So tactical's job is to make sure that it's implementing priorities and coordinating. Strategic's job is to make sure that anything that tactical needs by way of support, it gets. We had a fire in the north of London area called Buncefield. And Strategic's job there was to provide the fire officers what they needed. And what they needed was foam, and they needed masses of it. There really almost wasn't enough foam in the country to put this fire out. It was such a big fire. So Strategic's job was to keep delivering foam so that the tactical commander could deal with the fire. Strategic's other job is to inform government. And one of the key lessons when you're setting up these systems for your major incidents is to remember that Strategic is set up for a major incident, and when the major incident is over, Strategic stands down. It is not a permanent headquarters. It stands up, brings agencies together, and then when the incident is over, it stands down. Can we have the next slide, please? And we can just do the next three, that's right. In the UK, we call these gold, silver, and bronze. It's easier to remember, gold, silver, and bronze. All right, next slide. So let's build up a very simple major incident, and in the middle of this, we will see how these things develop. Okay, just stop it there for a minute. You can see in the first circle, the inner cordon, everything that is operational. These are the people who are getting their hands dirty doing things. Notice we see the police there, we see civil protection there, we see the ambulance services, medical services, we see other specialists there. And of course, in the early stages, the civilian population is there too. Because obviously, they're the first people to respond to major disasters, because they're right there on the spot. And one of the things you're trying to do is to get them gently out of the inner cordon so they're out of danger and out of the way. So all of that's at the operational level. But all of those policemen are commanded by a police officer. All of the firemen or civil protection officers are being commanded by a civil protection officer. And each of these are represented here at Tactical. So police are commanding police, civil protection is commanding civil protection, medical services are commanded by medical services, and so on. If you had military, the military in there would be commanded by the military. But the key thing about the Tactical is this. One of those agencies is the lead coordinator. Somebody is in charge. They are ultimately making the decisions which affect everybody, all the agencies. And this is replicated at the strategic level as well, because strategic is not only serving to support tactical, strategic, is also working with local government to help with the recovery. So they're trying to get the essential services going again: water, gas, electricity. They're trying to get the banks open again so that people can get money out and go shopping, and so on. They want to get the schools going again. They want to get the hospitals going again. They want to get the roads repaired. They want to get the telephone system up and running again. That's what they're doing. They're working with local government, and they are informing central government. And within central government, one of the lead ministries will be taking a key interest. If this was a transportation accident, the Ministry of Transport would be the lead government agency. So there's coordination across the piece. And this is absolutely vital, because without coordination, certain bits of vital information will get lost. And it's that bit of vital information I want to come on to. Can we have the next slide, please? Let's now look at that whole model, but with one particular thought in mind. Where are your people? Where is everybody? If you could hit the button again. Everybody who is injured is evacuated from the scene of danger, where it says that the operational, they're evacuated to a casualty clearing station. These casualty clearing stations are often set up by hospital staff that are deployed rapidly, although you in civil defence could easily set up such a casualty clearing station. Indeed, so can the police. And the aim of the casualty clearing station is to triage people, to make sure that only the priority people go to hospital. So there we see the people who've been evacuated, sent to hospital because they've been triaged. Next lot of people, we can have the button again. Next lot of people you'll see coming out of the circle. If you could hit the button. Thank you. These are the people who are not injured at all. They are able to walk themselves. They are being evacuated from the scene of danger, and they're brought to an evacuation assembly point, at which point their names and details are taken, and from there they either go to reception centres, maybe they go back to their families, or maybe if they're not from the Emirates, they go home to England or America or France or wherever. I don't belong here. If this building collapses today, I don't want to end up in a reception centre for 3 months waiting for my house to be repaired. I need to be repatriated back to England because I am an unnecessary person here. So those are the uninjured people. And then the last people to come out are the dead. And you always leave them till last, obviously. And they are brought again to the casualty clearing station, where they are declared dead by a doctor. It may be a great comfort to you today to know that you are not dead until a doctor says so. Some of you are sitting there thinking, I really feel dead today. You're not dead until a doctor says you are dead. That's good news for you. And once you are declared dead, your body is taken to a body holding area, normally in a place that is out of sight of the media, out of sight of public gazing with cameras and little iPhones, and then taken to a temporary mortuary. Now, all of that is happening with people, your people and my people. And the key thing is here, whether you are injured or uninjured or dead, we need to know who you are and where you are. That is casualty tracking. Can we have the next slide, please? Here's a picture on a television. I want you to imagine that you've just woken up this morning and you've turned on your television. You'll notice it's a widescreen television, so it's a modern one. And you've seen this picture, and suddenly that message comes up on the bottom of the screen. And you look at that train and you tell yourself, that's the train that my son takes to go to work every day. And you're thinking, is he alive or is he dead? Who do you phone? Who do you phone? You know that that's the train that your son takes or your daughter takes or your relative takes because they go every day by train to work. And you look at that and you say, I have a horrible feeling my son was on that train. Who do you phone? Well, obviously you say, I phone my son. So you pick up your mobile phone and you dial his number. And after a couple of rings, you go to his voice answering machine saying, please leave a message. So you've got nowhere with that. Now who do you phone? And those of you who are wanting to put your hand up and say, we phone 999 or 112, That's not the answer. Because when I phone 999 in my country, I get asked a question: do I want the police, or do I want the fire service, or do I want an ambulance? I don't want any of those three things. I want to know where my son is. So I then say, I'll phone the hospital. Well, which hospital do I phone? And most hospitals only have 1 or 2 public telephone lines to come in. So maybe I phone the police. Which police station? And again, the police may not know. So who do I phone? And if I don't know who to phone, guess what I might do? I will get into my car and I will drive to the scene. And I've just made the situation worse, because I've added to the number of people who are now walking around the place, getting in the way of you trying to rescue people and trying to restore some form of order. I'm getting in the way. So to prevent that happening, in my country and many other countries, we have something we call the Casualty Tracking System, or Casualty Bureau. If we go on to the next slide, please. What happens is that the public, next slide, phones something called the Missing Person Unit. And the way it works is simply this. If I am concerned that my relative is involved in that train accident, I turn on my television and somebody from the police or civil protection will announce that because this is a major incident, we have set up a casualty telephone number, and they give a free phone telephone number. And I, as a member of the public, can pick up my phone and phone that number to say, I am really worried that my brother or my son has been involved in that train accident. Now, the people who operate the call center are often off-duty civil protection or off-duty policemen who are brought in to help run a call center. And there are multiple lines so that the public can call in, and there will be a lot of people who call. And when you phone up as a member of the public to say, where is my son, where is my brother, what actually happens is they ask you questions. They don't tell you where your brother is yet. What they say is, could you please describe your brother to me? Could you describe your sister? Now, in England, if a man phones to say, I'm very worried I can't find my wife, and they are asked to describe their wife, most Englishmen are very bad at describing their wife. They'll say, what colour are her eyes? And you could hear him sort of pausing. I don't know. She's got 2 eyes, but I can't remember what colour they are. What colour is her hair? I don't know. She's got hair. What was she wearing? Clothes? I mean, men are very vague when they try to describe their wives. But if a wife is concerned about her husband and she phones up and says, I think my husband was involved in that particular accident, and they say, well, what was your husband wearing? Well, he was wearing his white shirt because I ironed it for him last night. He was wearing his blue tie, the one I bought him for his birthday. She knows exactly what he was wearing, and she knows exactly the colour of his eyes. Now, I've been so politically incorrect so far that I think this lecture will be scrubbed from the YouTube videos that they're going to do. Anyway, could we just go back 1 slide, please. So the public are phoning the Missing Person Unit. That is telling us who is missing. At the same time, at the scene of the major incident, you in civil protection, others in police, others in the medical services, others maybe in the military, are actually rescuing people, whether they are injured or uninjured or dead, and information is coming to a central casualty information unit. And I'm saying central because each of you, whether you are police or civil protection or military or medical, all of you have a bit of the jigsaw. No one single agency will deal with everybody. You're all dealing with people because that's the way that major incidents and disasters work. So what we have to do is to take the information that's coming in from the public saying these are the people we're worried about and who are missing, and match it with the people who are actually dealing with the incident on the ground. And these 2 call centers could even be in the same building but with a dividing wall. Or one could be in Abu Dhabi and the other could be in Dubai. For example, if the major incident took place here in Abu Dhabi, all of the casualty information would be coming from people in Abu Dhabi. But the public could phone a call center in Dubai, and the information could be shared across the internet. This information then is brought to a collation unit which brings it together. Now we begin to see who are the people who have been affected. So when we know who those people are. We can contact families and say, we have found your wife. She is alive. She's injured, but she's in this hospital, in this ward, and she will be with you soon. So we are now able to track and identify people. Next slide, please. Linked to this is the really cheerful subject of identifying the dead, disaster victim identification. You and I have the right, according to Interpol, you and I have the right not to lose our identity just because we die in a country away from our home. Many people who have died away from the country have never been identified, and it's as if they've totally disappeared. But we have a duty of care not only to our people in our country, but to those who have travelled to our country on work or as tourists or whatever, who have repatriated. So we want to provide that duty of care so that nobody dies and loses their identity. That is the aim of DVI, Disaster Victim Identification. Next slide, please. And all it's trying to do is to match two forms of data. If I have a dead body here, there are two forms of data I'm trying to match. Ante-mortem data, before they died, and post-mortem data, after they've died. So I'm looking for evidence of DNA. I'm looking for evidence of fingerprints. I'm looking for evidence of anything that I can use to identify who that person is. Next slide, please. One of the challenges you will find in identifying the dead, we call them open events and closed events. If an aircraft crashes today, that is what we would call a closed event, because maybe it has 200 people on board. Well, we know who those 200 people are. So if an aircraft crashes and there are 200 bodies, we've got a rough idea of who those people are. If an aircraft crashes into a shopping centre or a bomb goes off in a cinema, that is an open event. We haven't a clue who all those people are. I should have said, I think I mixed myself up. An aircraft is a closed event, but a shopping centre is an open event because you don't have any idea who those people are. So we must have systems in place to identify who they are. How do we identify someone on the ground? Yes, they may have identification papers in their pockets, or they may not. Or they may have somebody else's jacket on with somebody else's identification papers on. Next slide, please. So this is the process, very simple. Once the incident takes place at the scene, the casualty bureau that I was talking about means that we now have linkages to the families who are worried that they can't find their loved ones. So we're talking to the right people already. Over here, because we've recovered the body from the scene of the disaster, in our mortuary, in our forensics department, and I know you have that here in the Emirates, in the mortuary, you are already identifying features about this person. You've, for instance, taken x-rays of the body and discovered they had an operation. And that operation is matched by the family showing information about that operation. So you now know you're talking to the right person. And then we go down to the next slide. Once those two have been matched, you can identify the person, and then finally the body is released. One of the things which I think embassies are agonizing about right now is how quickly you can identify who that dead person is and restore them to their family. If that person is from overseas, the embassies will be screaming at you, "Where is our citizen?" In the same way that if it was one of your people in England or America or France, you would be screaming at their government saying, "Where is our person? Where is our man or our woman?" Okay, next slide, please. Really, so what I've been saying is within the context of a major incident, in the context of integration, all of the people who are involved in dealing with the injured, with the dead, or with the uninjured, everybody, this information needs coordination. You who deal with fires, who will search and rescue for people, you are at the heart of dealing with people. You're going to have a huge part of the component of dealing with people. And therefore you will know where those people are. But the police will know as well, and so will medical services, and so will other organizations. This needs to be shared. Next slide. I hope that's given you something to think about, and I think I'm just about on time. I had to time this in front of the mirror last night, so I knew I was going to be about 20 minutes. And if there are any questions that you want to come up with later, I hope that we'll be able to deal with them then. Thank you very much indeed.